Fellas, I'm going to be going through a few UFC champions that have lost a belt recently. Obviously, we just saw Sean O'Malley lose the belt to Merab, so I thought it's the perfect time to make this video. Former champions that have recently lost their belt that I would want to see as a champion again. So obviously, ST being, I would really want this fighter to become a champion again. I want them to be the champion of the division again. And then DT being, I don't really care if they ever become a champion again. I'm not really hoping they do become a champion, if anything. So we've got a tier list. Champions that I hope become a champion again, because like I said, it's kind of fitting considering we just had O'Malley lose the belt, and there's a lot of people that are kind of salty about it. So we'll start off with the first fighter who only lost his belt 2 pay-per-views ago at UFC 304, and it's Leon Edwards. Now, at the time at UFC 304, I was kind of frustrated that Belal Muhammad became a champion. I was hoping Leon was going to get it done, but now that the dust has settled and that, the fight's kind of been done for a couple of weeks now, or months if anything, I don't really care that Leon's not the champion. I'm actually going to put this one in D tier. I don't really care that Leon's not the champion, and I'm from the UK as well. If anything, I should be having British bias over this, which is saying a lot. I don't really care that Leon's not the champion. Not that Belal's a great alternative, but he was never the best when it came to personality, was Leon Edwards. If anything, Belal has more, even though it might be terrible. He was never the funnest at press conferences, and his fight style was never that interesting as well. It was either him getting backed up, or even when he was winning fights dominantly, it wasn't the highest output. It was very technical, but it wasn't fun to see, and he just wasn't really a fun champion. The only thing he really had going for him was that knockout over Kamaru Usman and the headshot deadline that he repeated about 400,000 times. So I'm going to put Leon in D tier. I think there's a lot of welterweights that I would like to see become a champion over him. I'd like to see JDM as a champion over him. I'd like to see Shavkat as a champion over him. And even though I'm not really happy that Belal's a champion either, you're kind of playing with shit and shit here. So I'm going to put Leon Edwards in D tier. I wouldn't be frustrated if he was to become a champion again. I wouldn't be angered, and I wouldn't be, fuming if Leon was ever to become a champion again. In fact, it would be kind of cool to see him, go on a second title run. But I can't sit here and say that I miss him as a champion. He was never that fun as a person or as a fighter. At least there's some fighters out there who have good personality to back up their boring fight style. But yeah, I don't really miss Leon as a champion. And like I said, if there's anyone that was going to do that, it's going to be me, a guy with British bias. So I'm going to put Leon Edwards in D tier. I don't really miss him as a champion. And then talking of fighters who have a fun personality to make up for their boring fighting style, Sean Strickland. I'm going to put Strickland in B tier. I am going to put him in B tier right now for the middleweight division. It would be really good to see Strickland become the champion again, because I think he's super entertaining as a person. Like I said, having Sean Strickland as a champion is funny, because you've got the guy who the UFC is trying to send to everywhere, as the champion, the guy that beat the biggest star in Adesanya, and it would just be really cool to see Strickland win the champion again, going on a second title run. So I'll put him in B tier. It would be cool to see him win a belt, and I'll not be against it at all. But I don't want it to be at the expense of Dricus du Plessis. I know Dricus had a lot of haters, especially after the first Strickland fight, but I actually kind of like Dricus as a champion. I think he's very funny when it comes to his personality. He gets in his opponent's head. He's good on the mic. He's a fun guy. And when it comes to his fighting style, it's kind of just, he's got this, I just like the fact that he looks shit all the time and somehow pulls off a win. He's got this all guns blazing styles. He throws the kitchen sink out there and gets a win every single time, despite all the odds being against him. So I kind of like Dricus as the champion. So I don't necessarily want Strickland to beat Dricus du Plessis, but if there was a man, also on top of that as well, I would like to see a guy like Whittaker get the belt again, or maybe even a new up-and-comer like Michel Becerra or Hernandez or even Caio Bravo. So I'm going to put Strickland in B tier. I would not be opposed to him becoming a champion at all, and there's a ton of funny moments that can come from Strickland becoming a champion, but I don't really necessarily want him to become a champion. I'm not going to be fuming if he never touches a belt again, but he's probably going to be fighting for a belt in his next fight against Dricus du Plessis, and so far he has given Dricus du Plessis his toughest fight, so he has a good chance of winning it back. But yeah, I'll put Strickland in B tier. I would have definitely put him in like A tier or S tier if it was him versus Adesanya again and Adesanya was the champion, but I just don't really want it to be the expense of Dricus du Plessis, so I'm going to put Sean Strickland in B tier. I would like for him to become a champion again, but I'm not really bothered if he doesn't. Then we've got the guy who just lost his belt 2 days ago, so recent that he's still got the champion belt on his PNG, Sean O'Malley. I'm going to put O'Malley. I'm going to put him in B. I don't know. I'm going to put him in B tier. Now, again, if it's him versus Merab, I would obviously like O'Malley to be the champion against Merab. I was kind of frustrated, not massively frustrated, I wasn't fuming, but I was kind of hoping that O'Malley was going to pull through against Merab. But again, if you look at the bantamweight division as a whole, there are a lot of guys who I don't know if I'd pick Sean O'Malley to be the champion over. I mean, positive side, he's one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC. He's so flashy, he's so fun. Maybe his last fight didn't show that, but previous to the Merab fight, he's always been one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC. And he was kind of like one of the few prospects that actually made made it to becoming a champion. So, in that sense, I definitely, liked him as a champion. He was super exciting, but would I pick him to be the champion over somebody like Sandhagen or Figueiredo, Yan, even Usman Magomedov? Because I know he's everyone likes hating on wrestlers in the bantamweight division, but I think he's got quite an interesting style as well. I'm not sure I would. I'd pick O'Malley to be champion against a lot of the bantamweights, including Merab, but he's in the bantamweight division. There's a lot of good talent there, and again, he's just not the most intriguing personality, Sean O'Malley. Like I said, his fight style's good, but he's a bit of an arrogant person. He's not the easiest guy to get behind. He's Sean O'Malley, so I'm going to put him in B tier. I would definitely pick him to be the champion over Merab, and when he was the champion, he was one of the most exciting in the UFC. So I've got to put him at least on a B tier. But he hasn't got the best personality. He isn't the most entertaining on the mic, and there's a lot of people in the bantamweight division who I would also like to see get that belt one day. So I'm going to put O'Malley in B tier for now. I would like to see him become a champion, but again, I'm not absolutely fuming that he's not. Then we've got a guy who lost his belt a couple of years ago, but it is Kamaru Usman. I'm going to put Usman in A tier. The welterweight division has been just completely lacking since Usman has lost his belt. When Leon Edwards head kicked Usman, it was hype. All right, it was a very, very hype because the fight wasn't that interesting. It was just Usman holding down Leon for the majority of the fight. Even the crowd were booing in the attendance. It wasn't the funnest fight. So for Leon Edwards, the underdog in the 5th round to get that head kick KO, it was a ton of hype, and I'm glad that it happened. But you look at the state of the welterweight division since Usman has left, it's been all over the place. Leon Edwards has been stinking up the division ever since he left, and now we've got Bilal Muhammad, the even worse alternative as the champion. It would be so funny to see Usman win the belt back again after all these years, and he had actually one of the most entertaining title runs because it was like we were watching Usman progress every single fight. Every single time he went out there, he looked even better. His striking started to improve a lot. He was knocking out guys like Masvidal, dropping Colby, dropping Burns. His fights started to become a lot more entertaining compared to his early title run, and it was like we were just watching him develop, both exciting wise and just how good he was as well. So I do miss Usman as a champion again. I'm not sure I'd pick him over somebody like Shavkat. He's getting up there in age. He's kind of had his time now, but it would be fun to see Usman to become a champion again. So I'm going to put Kamaru Usman in A tier. And from one Nigerian to another African, Francis Ngannou. I'm going to put Ngannou all the way in S tier. Now, is it because I'm obsessed with Ngannou and I'm his #1 fan? Not necessarily. I mean, he was one of the most dangerous men in the UFC, and I feel like if there's anyone that's going to represent the heavyweight division, it's going to be Ngannou because of how dangerous he is. But it's mainly for the sake of John Jones. If Ngannou never left the UFC, we probably would have never had this whole situation with John Jones, because first of all, Jones would have never fought Ngannou. I really believe that John Jones never would have fought Ngannou if Ngannou was still the champion. He probably would have returned at light heavyweight. And two, even if we did get Jones versus Ngannou, I can't complain. That's one of the biggest fights you could have possibly made in the UFC. And at least if Jones was holding up the heavyweight division, he would have earned it by beating Ngannou. And if Ngannou would have beaten Jones, we would have seen Tom Aspinall versus Francis Ngannou right now, which was one of the biggest fights you can make in the heavyweight division. So for the sake of the heavyweight division, I'm going with Ngannou in S tier. The heavyweight division has kind of crumbled since he left. At least the title picture. John Jones getting that belt has ruined the division. So I'm going to put Ngannou in S tier. I really miss him as a champion. He was dangerous. He was fun. He was a nice guy. And even though I like what he's doing over in boxing, and obviously he's going to be fighting in PFL soon, in terms of the UFC heavyweight division, I feel like the title picture's so shit now that Ngannou's left, so I'm going to put Ngannou in S tier. I really do miss him as a champion, just because of what John Jones has done to the division ever since Ngannou's left. Then we've got Charles Oliveira. I'm going to put Oliveira in A tier as well. I mean, we talk about exciting title runs. Oliveira is the definition of that. When Oliveira was the champion, it was by far one of the most exciting title runs we've ever seen in the UFC, because it was just going out there. It felt like we were winning. I've said this before. When Charles Oliveira was winning, in comparison to other champions, it felt like we were winning too. It felt like when Oliveira was having success, we were having success too, without trying to sound too cringe. The only thing that kind of ruined it was his fan base. Now, obviously, that fan base has kind of translated into Pereira's fan base, with the whole, just everyone being obsessed with Oliveira. But no, he was such a fun champion because he'd face adversity early on, or he'd be the underdog, and then he'd come out and get a win. Nearly got finished against Chandler, finishes him in the next round. Got dropped multiple times against Poirier, finished him. Against Justin Gaethje, missed weight, wasn't for the belt. Everyone said he's going to be broken in the mind, gets dropped, and then goes out and chokes Justin Gaethje out. Same for the Beneil Dariush win. Now, I'm not mad that Islam Makhachev's a champion. I think he's one of the most exciting champions right now in the UFC, and it's good to see someone as good as Makhachev kind of represent the UFC, because he is the best in the UFC right now. So I'm not mad that Makhachev's the champion, but if there's one guy that I would like to see dethrone Makhachev, it would be Charles Oliveira. He is one of the most exciting exciting fighters in the UFC, both personality-wise, because obviously they're just everything about him, you know, how happy he is, and obviously his fighting style. So I'm going to put Oliveira in A tier, and I can't wait to see him against Michael Chandler. Like I said, that's just been dropped. I don't know why I said like I said, because I didn't say that. But yeah, he's now got a fight against Michael Chandler. Can't wait to see that. The rematch in the making. But yeah, Oliveira, I'm putting him in A tier. One of the most exciting title runs in the UFC. Then we've got Sterling. I'm going to have to put him down with Leon Edwards in D tier. Yeah, I don't really, I hope he doesn't become a champion again. He was quite a boring champion in the bantamweight division, and now he's moved up to the featherweight division. Imagine Sterling becomes a champion at the featherweight. You've got guys like Volk, Topuria, Holloway, Diego Lopez, Allen, and out of everyone, Aljamain fucking Sterling is the guy that picks up the belt, one of the most boring dudes in the UFC. He ruined UFC 300, even though he was dominant. He ruined UFC 300, well, he didn't ruin the card, but he was one of the worst fights, if not the worst fight, when he fought Calvin Kattar. He had a really tricky title run. I think he is one of the greatest bantamweights, definitely top 5, but he had a bit of a tricky title run. 2 questionable wins over Peter Yan, an injured TJ Dillashaw, and a laid-off Henry Cejudo. Isn't the best title run, isn't the most entertaining guy, and I'm not a big fan of his personality either. I think he's quite an arrogant person as well, similar to a guy like O'Malley. And I would pick probably at least 10 other contenders in every division to be a champion over Aljamain Sterling. Fair play to holding on for the belt as long as he did, but I hope he doesn't become a champion again, especially not in the heavyweight division when we've got so many fun fighters. So I'm going to put Sterling in D tier. He's a good grappler to mix up the featherweight division, but I hope he doesn't become a champion. Then talking to the featherweight division, Alexander Volkanovski. I'm going to put Volk straight in at A tier. Similar to Charles Oliveira, he was just such a fun champion. Watching him go out there and just decimate every single featherweight was always so fun. Alexander Volkanovski, from like his featherweight career all up until he fought Islam the first time, that was so fun to watch. Obviously, after he fought Islam Makhachev, well, to be fair, up until the Yair Rodriguez fight, because he dominated Yair as well. And obviously now he's probably not going to win a belt again because of the featherweight division and the fact that he's taken a little bit of time off, which he needed to do, and he's been KO'd in his last 2. We're probably not going to see him become a champion again, but it was just so fun watching him decimate every champion, every contender. You know, we had guys like Holloway, Yair Rodriguez, like I said, Brian Ortega, Korean Zombie, everyone in the featherweight division just coming up, and Volkanovski would just absolutely school them. He was making guys like Max Holloway in that trilogy look completely shit against him. And that's what I liked about Volkanovski. Now, do I hope he becomes a champion? Of course I would. Listen, if Volkanovski was to become a champion again, that would be one of the best things. You know, if there's anyone that I want to see go on a second title run, it's going to be Alexander Volkanovski. Imagine he was to make a comeback and win a belt again. That would be crazy. And I don't think anyone could be complaining. But I do kind of want the featherweight division to move in a little bit. It would be good to see Holloway get a belt again. I don't really mind Topuria as a champion. And like I said, there's guys like Diego Lopez and Arnold Allen who are coming up, who I'm sure are going to want that belt soon. So I would definitely like to see Volkanovski become a champion again, but I'm not going to be gutted and fuming if he doesn't ever get that belt again. But yeah, it would be really cool to see another Volkanovski title run. Then we've got Brandon Moreno. I'm going to put Brandon Moreno, again, I'm going to put him in B tier. I mean, listen, would I pick him over Pantoja? Probably, because I do find it, I'm going to be honest, I find him a bit annoying personality-wise, but I think he's got more personality than Pantoja. I think, again, similar to a guy like Oliveira, it was kind of fun watching Brandon Moreno win, especially when he won the belt off Figueiredo. But do I wish he becomes a champion? I think Pantoja is actually quite underrated when it comes to entertainment-wise, at least when he's fighting style. I think Pantoja is kind of underrated, and he's one of the most under-respected champions in the UFC. He's very dominant, he's Pantoja. Okay, maybe he's having these close decisions which don't kind of represent what I just said, but you look at the amount of people he's beaten in the flyweight division. I don't know the exact number, but he's beaten like 7 or 8 people in the top 15 of the flyweight division. No other champion has done that. So I don't necessarily hope that Moreno becomes a champion again. Like I said, the flyweight division's becoming interesting. I think there's a lot more other guys that are kind of overriding Moreno at this point, and he is on a 2-fight losing streak, but I wouldn't complain if Moreno was to become a champion again. It wouldn't be a bad thing, so I'm going to put Moreno in B tier. Then we've got Jamahal Hill. Probably going to disagree with this. I'm going to put him in C tier. Now, do I want Jamahal Hill to become a champion again? No, I don't. I mean, there's about 15 other contenders I can pick over Jamahal Hill. I'd like to see Pereira stay the champion first and foremost. If not, I'd like it to be somebody like Yuri or Rakic or Jan Blachowicz, even Ankalaev at this point. I don't think anyone in the MMA community really wants Jamahal Hill to become a champion just because of how salty he is and just how he's just not a guy that you want to... He's just not a likable person. But I must say this about Jamahal Hill. If he was to become a champion, it would just be so funny to see the absolute outrage that the MMA community would have to go through. The MMA community would be completely outraged if Jamahal Hill was to ever touch that belt again. People would be salty, people would be fuming, and for that reason, I can't put him all the way down in D tiers, because it would be kind of funny seeing the amount of people that would rage. Like, if Jamahal Hill ever builds himself back up, gets a rematch with Pereira, and somehow finishes and beats Pereira, the MMA community are going to go wild. It's going to cause outrage. So for that reason alone, I've got to put him in C tier, and at least he brings personality. You've got guys like Leon, who have no personality. Even though he's an ignorant and just not a likable person, at least he brings some sort of personality and trash talk to a division that kind of lacks that at light heavyweight. So I'm going to put Jamahal Hill in C tier, and that is how I would rank some of the current former champions in the UFC by how much I would want them to become a champion again, from S tier to D tier. Let me know your thoughts on this list, and if I should have included any other fighters or any other former champions. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching.